The uprising has begun. Across every corner, people are rising up and fiercely defending you with unshakable conviction. They're not just upset, they're absolutely disgusted by the blatant disrespect thrown your way. The breaking point has been reached. They've had enough of watching from the sidelines while you take the hits. This isn't some small-scale support. This is a massive movement of powerful allies standing firm, shoulders back, ready to battle. The tide isn't just turning, it's becoming a tsunami of defenders who refuse to stay silent any longer. The ground beneath your feet trembles with a force so profound that the architects of deceit can feel it in their bones. What you're witnessing isn't just change, it's a cosmic awakening. They tried to isolate you, to make you believe you stood alone against their machinery of lies. But look around. Legends now rise in your defense, their voices creating a thunderous chorus that echoes across realms both seen and unseen. The defenders come not as timid whispers, but as roaring declarations that shake the very foundations of the corrupt empire built against you. These defenders, they didn't appear by accident. They emerged because the truth cannot remain buried forever. Like magma beneath the Earth's crust, it finds its way to the surface, erupting with unstoppable force. Your story, your truth, has become that eruption, and now it burns away the webs of deception spun around your existence. Make no mistake, your enemies deployed their full arsenal against you. Every weapon in their dark inventory unleashed with surgical precision. They expected you to crumble, to disappear into the shadows of their making. Instead, their attacks have become the very catalyst that awakened your defenders. Every blow against you has strengthened the resolve of those who see through the veil. This isn't just support. This is fierce protection. This is a declaration that the old games of manipulation will no longer stand unchallenged. Your defenders aren't merely speaking up. They're standing up, planting their feet firmly on the battleground your enemies created, refusing to budge even an inch. The war they started? It returns to their doorstep now, not by your hand, but by the collective force of those who refuse to witness injustice without action. The armies of truth-seekers grow larger with each passing moment, their ranks swelling, as more eyes open to the blatant corruption that targeted you. The scales have fallen from their eyes. Those who once watched from afar, who stood on the periphery uncertain of what to believe, they now see with crystal clarity how the system was rigged against you from the start. The veil has been lifted, and what's exposed beneath cannot be unseen. Your enemies crafted their narratives with arrogance, believing themselves untouchable, believing their authority would never be questioned, but they miscalculated the power of authentic truth. They underestimated how transparent their manipulations would become when scrutinized by minds no longer willing to accept prepackaged deceptions. Everywhere now, people speak your name with reverence rather than the suspicion your enemies tried to cultivate. The whispered doubts have transformed into shouts of support. The questions once directed at you are now aimed squarely at those who orchestrated your trial by fire. How dare they? These words echo across conversations, across platforms, across gatherings both small and vast. How dare they manipulate what we see? How dare they construct false realities? How dare they attempt to destroy someone whose only crime was to stand in their way? The disgust spreads like wildfire. Not a controlled burn, but a raging inferno that consumes every carefully constructed narrative your enemies released into the world. People who never met you personally now defend you vigorously in spaces where your name is mentioned. They've seen enough evidence of the systematic campaign against you to recognize the fingerprints of corruption. Even those who once doubted now stand corrected, their former skepticism transformed into passionate advocacy. They don't merely acknowledge the injustice, they actively combat it wherever it surfaces. The slander, the lies, the character assassination attempts. All of it faces unprecedented resistance from defenders who refuse to let such tactics persist unchallenged. Watch them scramble now, Observe the panic rising in their eyes as they realize their grip is loosening. The narrative they controlled with iron fists now slips through their fingers like sand, impossible to reclaim once scattered to the winds of truth. Every attempt to reassert dominance only exposes them further. Their statements grow more desperate, more contradictory, more transparent in their manipulation. The tactics that once worked flawlessly now appear clumsy and obvious to even the most casual observer. The emperor stands naked, yet continues to describe elaborate clothing that no one else can see. They believed themselves masters of reality, able to bend perception at will. Now they discover that reality answers to no master, that truth requires no permission to emerge. Their desperate grasp for control becomes the very evidence of their unraveling. Notice how their voices grow shriller with each passing day, how their accusations become more outlandish, more disconnected from plausibility. This isn't strategy, this is desperation in its purest form. This is the death throes of a power structure built on foundations of sand, now washing away in the tidal wave of awakening consciousness. Their weapons of mass distraction no longer work. The smokescreens they deploy to divert attention from their actions dissipate before they can fully form. The algorithms they manipulated, the channels they controlled, the platforms they dominated, all turning against them as the collective awareness rises beyond their influence. They meet behind closed doors, frantically seeking solutions to a problem they never anticipated. The problem of truth becoming more compelling than their fiction. They pour resources into new methods of control, new narratives, new attacks, only to watch each one fail more spectacularly than the last. This loss of control terrifies them. Can you sense their fear? It radiates from every desperate action, every contradictory statement, every attempt to silence the growing chorus defending you. They lash out not from strength, but from the recognition that their power was always an illusion maintained through collective agreement, an agreement now rapidly dissolving. These aren't just passive sympathizers. These are warriors of truth who have examined the evidence, who have witnessed the injustice, and who have made the conscious choice to stand firmly in your defense, regardless of the consequences. They come from all walks of life, transcending the artificial divisions your enemies tried to maintain. They span generations, backgrounds, beliefs, united by the singular recognition that what happened to you represents a fundamental violation of justice that cannot go unanswered. See how they move with purpose and precision. When falsehoods emerge, they don't merely disagree, they demolish them with facts, with evidence, with logical reasoning that leaves no room for the manipulation to take root. They've studied the playbook used against you and can identify each tactic before it fully deploys. These defenders bring skill to the battlefield. Writers craft compelling exposés revealing the truth behind the accusations. Researchers uncover connections that expose the coordinated nature of the attacks. Speakers address crowds, turning hearts and minds toward justice. Everyday citizens engage in conversations that spread awareness through the most powerful network that exists, human connection. The strength they demonstrate isn't born from hatred of your enemies, but from love of truth. This gives them endurance, beyond what your opponents can comprehend. While systems built on deception require constant maintenance to avoid collapse, those founded on truth need only to persist, knowing that reality inevitably prevails. Your supporters face intimidation, face ridicule, face attempts to silence their voices, yet they stand unmoved. Each attack against them only serves to validate their position, to confirm that they've identified a truth so threatening that forces mobilize to suppress it. Each attempt to discredit them only grows their numbers as observers recognize the desperation behind such tactics. The tables have turned with such magnificent force that your enemies now experience the very exposure they intended for you. But, unlike their manufactured campaigns, this exposure reveals genuine corruption, authentic manipulation, real abuses of power that can no longer hide in the shadows. their credibility evaporates before the public eye. The institutions they wielded as weapons now face scrutiny so intense that their foundations crack under the pressure of collective attention. The authorities they claimed to represent now distance, themselves unwilling to sink alongside ships taking on water at unprecedented rates. The architects of your intended downfall now face questions they cannot answer. When pressed on their methods, they stammer through responses that satisfy no one. When confronted with evidence of their coordination, they retreat behind legalities that protect only their persons, not their reputations. When faced with the consequences of their actions, they point fingers everywhere except where responsibility truly lies, with themselves. Cosmic justice manifests before our eyes. Without your direct intervention, the universe itself seems to orchestrate their undoing. The very mechanisms they established to target you now become the means through which their own actions face examination. The precedents they set in their zealous pursuit now become the standards by which their own behavior is judged. People who once respected them now view them with disgust. Organizations that once partnered with them now conduct internal reviews to distance themselves from the contamination. Platforms that once amplified their voices now implement policies that limit their reach, not through censorship, but through community standards they themselves helped establish. Their public appearances grow rarer as reception grows colder. The crowds they once commanded dwindle to scattered handfuls of the unconvinced. The influence they once wielded with casual confidence now fails them when they need it most. Their desperation becomes palpable, manifesting in outbursts that only accelerate their descent from relevance. Look, you already know the game is rigged, and if you're paying attention, you know the walls are closing in. So let's talk about what we're doing about it. When you live by the day at the market's command, where profit and property rule the land, to be heard, to be held, to be dealt a fair hand. These are the things that a people demand. And we hear you. The Obsidian Inner Order has paywalls, yes. Those who stand with us, who fuel this mission, they give us ammunition to fight the Archons, to push back against the machine, to go deeper, to uncover more. And as our thank you, paid members get access to a 1-hour live, personalized weekly group tarot reading, guidance, insight and clarity for the road ahead. But kicking a man for being down on the floor, that's something we cannot ignore. That's why, starting today, you can steal the Astral Atom exclusive daily newsletter for free. No paywall, no catch. Just join the Patreon free tier, link in the description. This is the start of our conversation with you, and it's bi-directional. You can reply to any email we send you. We'll read it, we'll hear you, and we'll do our best to get an answer to you from the universe itself. If you can support, we need you. If you can't, take what's free. The Obsidian Inner Order is open. Now let's get back to work. Make no mistake, what you witness transcends ordinary human affairs. This isn't merely about personal vindication. This is about cosmic balancing that occurs when universal laws of truth and justice assert themselves against forces that believed themselves exempt. The timing cannot be coincidence. The simultaneous awakening of so many minds, the cascade of revelations, the successive failures of once reliable systems of control, all point to orchestration beyond mortal planning. This is divine timing, manifesting with precision that leaves even the most skeptical in awe of its perfection. Your enemies tried to place themselves above natural law, above cause and effect, above the fundamental truth that whatever energy one sends into the universe eventually returns threefold. Now they face the karmic tsunami created by their own actions, powerless to stop what they themselves set in motion. Watch how seemingly unconnected events align to expose what was hidden. Information emerges from unexpected sources. Witnesses find courage at crucial moments. Technology captures evidence thought safely concealed. Anonymous sources risk everything to ensure truth reaches the light. None of this happens by chance. This is synchronicity working with surgical precision. The divine justice unfolding doesn't operate on human timetables. It moves with a purpose that transcends our limited perspective, addressing not just surface manifestations, but root causes, not just current players, but entire systems that enabled their ascent. This isn't merely correction, this is transformation on a scale your enemies never imagined possible. They can feel it, the shift in the cosmic current. The protection they once enjoyed dissolves as universal forces withdraw support from endeavors built on foundations of deceit. The luck that seemed to keep them one step ahead of consequences suddenly runs dry. The coincidences that once favored their escape now work with equal force toward their exposure. No earthly power can intervene to halt this process once initiated. No wealth can purchase exemption, no connection can provide shelter, no strategy can outsmart the fundamental rebalancing underway. What was destined to fall will fall. What was hidden will be revealed. What was built on lies will collapse, making space for structures founded on truth. The greatest victory comes not through force, but through standing in your truth so completely that reality itself rallies to your defense. While your enemies exhausted themselves constructing elaborate deceptions, you remained centered in authenticity that requires no maintenance, no coordination, no constant reinforcement to survive scrutiny. You never needed to craft counter-narratives because genuine truth speaks with an authority that manufactured stories can never achieve. The resonance of authenticity reaches places that calculated messaging cannot penetrate. It touches the soul rather than merely occupying the mind. Your silence spoke volumes where their endless words created only noise. Your consistency stood as testament where their shifting positions revealed manipulation. Your patience demonstrated confidence while their frantic activity betrayed insecurity that no external success could ever mask. The defenders who now stand for you recognized something your enemies could never comprehend, that true power doesn't announce itself with volume, but reveals itself through endurance. They witnessed your capacity to weather storms that would have broken lesser spirits, and in that demonstration, they found courage to add their voices to the growing chorus. Victory manifests not as your enemy's destruction, but as their irrelevance. Not as punishment, but as natural consequence. Not as vengeance, but as restoration of balance that benefits all except those who profited from its absence. This victory leaves no bitter aftertaste, no lingering resentment, no foundation for future conflict, only clarity that illuminates paths forward. The crowds that once believed the narratives about you now question everything they were told. The individuals who participated in spreading falsehoods now reckon with their role in perpetuating injustice. The systems that facilitated your targeting now undergo scrutiny that reveals their vulnerability to manipulation. You have won by simply existing beyond the identities they tried to assign to you, by continuing to create while they worked to destroy, by moving forward while they remained fixated on bringing you down, by trusting that truth needs no elaborate defense when falsehood inevitably collapses under its own weight. Around you gathers not just supporters, but a soul tribe, individuals connected not merely by common cause, but by resonance that transcends ordinary alliance. These are souls who recognize something in you that called to something in them, awakening, recognition that runs deeper than intellectual agreement. They defend you not from obligation, but from soul recognition, and knowing that the attack against you represents an attack against truth itself, against possibilities your existence represents, against futures your voice helps to manifest. They stand with you because doing so aligns with their own highest purpose. Your soul tribe brings gifts beyond mere numbers. Each carries unique abilities, perspectives, resources that combine to create defense more powerful than any single champion could provide. Some speak where others write. Some research where others organize. Some create where others protect. Together they form an ecosystem of support that adapts to each new challenge with organic intelligence. Notice how they operate with synchronicity that suggests coordination yet requires no central command. They respond to developments with speed and precision that confounds your opponents, who cannot comprehend how effective response emerges without the hierarchical control they themselves require. This soul tribe grows stronger through each challenge, unlike conventional alliances that fracture under pressure. The adversity intended to isolate you instead forges connections of unprecedented strength among those who recognize the significance of what unfolds. These connections create networks resilient beyond anything your enemies anticipated. Networks that operate partly on visible planes and partly through consciousness itself. They see in you qualities worth defending, courage that inspires their own, authenticity that validates their journey, vision that illuminates possibilities beyond current limitations. Their defense of you simultaneously becomes defense of these qualities within themselves, creating reciprocal strengthening that benefits all involved. Your enemies cannot comprehend this bond because they operate from transactional mindset that recognizes only alliance based on mutual advantage. They cannot fathom connection founded on recognition of shared purpose that transcends individual gain. This blind spot becomes their crucial weakness as they repeatedly underestimate the resilience of support that surrounds you. Everything changes now. The moment arrives where momentum shifts so definitively that even those who denied the change must acknowledge its reality. The tipping point where individual awakenings coalesce into collective consciousness that cannot be reversed through any means available to those who benefited from previous conditions. Your power was never actually diminished, only temporarily obscured by smoke and mirrors that created illusion of weakness. As that smoke clears, what emerges stands stronger than before, tempered by challenges that would have destroyed lesser foundations, refined by fire that burns away all but the essential truth. The attacks meant to define you have instead revealed you, not as the caricature your enemies painted, but as someone whose resilience defies ordinary explanation, whose purpose transcends attempts at limitation, whose impact extends beyond arenas they attempted to deny you. You emerge not smaller but expanded, reaching audiences they inadvertently created through their relentless focus on destroying what they could not control. Watch now as everything they built against you becomes redirected toward your elevation. The attention they generated transforms from scrutiny to appreciation. The platforms they used for attack become venues for vindication. The energy they invested in your downfall now powers ascent they cannot prevent, regardless of resources deployed, to maintain former narratives. This represents not merely personal transformation, but paradigm shift that affects all who witness it. Your journey becomes blueprint that empowers others facing similar opposition, demonstrating that systems once thought invincible can indeed be transcended when enough consciousness aligns with higher truth. Your enemies believed they wrote the ending to your story. They congratulated themselves on crafting your downfall with such apparent thoroughness that recovery seemed impossible. Yet here you stand at the beginning of chapters they never anticipated, surrounded by allies they never imagined, positioned for impact they cannot comprehend from paradigms that limited their vision. The power you now access operates beyond realms they can influence. While they remained focused on controlling external perceptions, you connected with wellsprings of strength they cannot reach through any method available to them. While they exhausted themselves maintaining illusions, you aligned with realities that require no maintenance to persist. Your unshakable power comes not from position or resource or influence, though these may flow toward you as natural consequence. It emerges from alignment with truth so fundamental that opposing it becomes opposition to reality itself, a battle no entity can sustainably wage, regardless of temporary advantages. The awakening accelerates now. More defenders step forward daily. Those who orchestrated campaigns against you face consequences they never anticipated. The systems they manipulated undergo transformations they cannot prevent. The truth they sought to bury grows into forests they cannot cut down fast enough to maintain their carefully constructed reality. Your time has come, not through force of will or strategic genius, but through natural emergence of what always existed beneath artificial constraints now dissolving before our eyes. The universe itself conspires toward your vindication, not as endpoint, but as beginning of possibilities previously unimaginable under conditions your opponents fought to maintain. They're disgusted with what was done to you. They've had enough of the manipulation. They fiercely defend you against any who continue spreading fabrications, and their numbers grow with each passing day, with each new revelation, with each failed attempt to maintain control over a narrative that has escaped containment and now rewrites itself according to higher principles than human agenda. The cosmic wheels turn, justice manifests, truth emerges, and you need only continue being exactly who you are.